Welcome to the Iran 1400 Project podcast, where we explore the past, present, and possible futures of Iran through informed dialogue, independent thought, and diverse voices. From historical insight to emerging narratives, we connect ideas to action in the pursuit of a more just, inclusive, and forward-looking society. Join us as we rethink Iran's trajectory, one conversation at a time.
Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating journey into a concept that is anything but static: independence. Specifically, we'll be exploring Esteqlāl, or independence, in Iran, and looking at how its meaning has just profoundly shifted over the last century or so.
Yeah.
What I find truly fascinating, really, is how this idea, which started so clearly defined as resistance against foreign intervention, colonial powers, Cold War powers.
Right.
It just took such unexpected turns.
It's a remarkable transformation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The core idea of independence in Iran has actually moved from being, primarily measured by its distance from the West, to increasingly being defined by its proximity to civic freedom within Iran itself.
Oh.
It really shows how a powerful concept can be reinterpreted to address entirely different challenges over time.
So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to truly unpack how Esteqlāl has functioned as this incredibly powerful, almost living narrative.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's been wielded by different political actors throughout history to affirm legitimacy, consolidate power, or sometimes even resist reform. We're going to trace its path not just as an abstract idea, but as something that has really shaped institutions.
Absolutely. And to understand this evolution, I think we have to start with the ideational shifts, particularly during the Pahlavi era.
Okay.
You saw a significant foreign presence back then, British, Russians, later Americans, manifesting through things like schools, language institutes, media outlets, advisory missions.
Right, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and many Iranians perceive these not just as, benign foreign influence, but as cultural encroachment or even a kind of soft imperialism.
And this wasn't just a quiet observation, was it? It sparked a pretty strong nationalist backlash, I imagine.
Oh, definitely.
For instance, Reza Shah, in his early nationalist efforts, started curtailing foreign missionary schools and centralized education.
Cool.
What was the driving force behind that?
Well, the goal was explicit nation building, trying to bring a unified Iranian identity to the forefront. Though, sometimes this came at the expense of minority education, it has to be said.
Right.
This era also gave us Jalal al-Ahmad's incredibly influential concept of garb-zadegi.
Ah, Westoxication.
Exactly, Westoxication. It was a sharp critique of uncritical westernization, highlighting Iran's growing dependency on foreign capital and technocratic elites' imported values. It really captured this deep unease many felt. And interestingly, the independence development strategy, which is something explored by the Iran 1400 Project, emerged back then as an early example of domestic planning. It was framed explicitly to resist external dependency, but still engaged with global modernity.
So garb-zadegi really captured this deep unease. Did that concept, did it directly influence policies or public sentiment in a tangible way that then sort of paved the path for the Islamic revival?
It absolutely laid significant groundwork. This intellectual ferment, this unease, it really set the stage for the Islamic revival, which brought a new anti-imperialist identity leading up to the 79 revolution.
Okay.
And Ayatollah Khomeini fundamentally reframed independence here. He presented it as a spiritual imperative.
Spiritual, how so?
By denouncing the Shah's ties to the West, portraying Western influence not just as political interference, but as an existential threat to Iran's Islamic identity.
Ah, I see. So if Islam became the ultimate bulwark, how did that then manifest in the immediate post-revolution period?
Precisely.
Yeah.
For Khomeini, Islam itself was presented as the ultimate bulwark against imperialism.
Yeah.
This elevated independence, making it both a national and a religious duty.
A duty.
Yes. And the iconic revolutionary slogan, neither East nor West, but the Islamic Republic, perfectly encapsulated this whole ethos.
Oh.
It guided Iran's post-revolutionary foreign policy, definitely its initial alignment with the non-aligned movement. Although, as we know, practical ties later on with powers like Russia and China Well, they complicated that ideal of pure non-alignment.
Sure, reality bites. Okay, this historical context brings us more towards how Esteqlāl is understood today, especially through Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's contemporary framing. He frequently invokes what he calls a soft war. What exactly does he mean by that?
He describes it as essentially a psychological and cultural campaign allegedly waged by the West aimed at eroding Iran's Islamic values.
Okay.
So this modern iteration of independence has really shifted focus.
Yeah.
It's less about territorial sovereignty like in the old anti-colonial days and more about protecting ideological and cultural frontiers.
A different kind of battleground.
A very different battleground, yes.
Now, while Khamenei frames this soft war externally, looking outwards, what's truly compelling, I think, is how younger generations within Iran seem to be reinterpreting independence.
Oh, absolutely.
You see Iran's Gen Z, visible on platforms like TikTok, in their art, music, among the diaspora, and especially during the recent uprisings. They define independence very differently, don't they?
They really do. For them, it seems to be much more about the freedom to express their own identity. Freedom to challenge imposed boundaries, both cultural and political, and to shape their own civic narratives.
So it's flipped inwards.
In a way, yes. What started as a fight against foreign powers has, for a significant part of this new generation, become a fight for individual freedom within their own country. That's a truly profound redefinition, I think.
That is a powerful internal redefinition. Let's unpack this shift maybe further by looking at the institutional evolution side of things.
Good idea.
Before 1979, state control was a key feature you mentioned. Reza Shah's government, for example, nationalized many foreign-run schools, centralized educational content. What was the aim there? Bringing education so firmly under state narrative control.
It was a clear move. Yeah, to align education with state narratives, to foster a unified national identity as the state defined it.
Okay.
Then later, in the post-World War II period, the U.S. launched its own cultural diplomacy efforts, things like the Peace Corps, the Iran-America Society.
Trying to build goodwill.
Exactly, build goodwill, influence public opinion. But what's fascinating, though, is how these efforts, by the time you get to the 1970s, actually seem to backfire.
How so?
Well, amid this rising wave of cultural nationalism, the very nationalism that Garbzadeghi tapped into, these U.S. efforts were increasingly seen as cultural encroachment. So they unintentionally laid some of the intellectual groundwork for revolutionary resistance. They kind of fed the sentiment they sought to counteract.
Wow, that's an ironic twist. Okay, so after 1979, the Islamic Republic really institutionalized its own vision of independence, creating what you could call these revolutionary control structures.
Yes.
Can you give us some specific examples of how these parallel systems were designed to protect the state from what it perceived as ideological and political threats?
Certainly. A prime example, maybe the most famous one, is the Cultural Revolution from about 1980 to 83. Universities are closed, then reopened with completely restructured curricula. The explicit aim was purging Western influence from academic and cultural institutions.
A total overhaul.
Pretty much.
Well,
Then you have the Bonyads. These are semi-state foundations is the literal translation.
right.
They absorbed huge amounts of assets, particularly royal assets, after the revolution, and now they control significant chunks of the Iranian economy.
Yeah.
And crucially, they report directly to the supreme leader, outside normal government channels.
So massive economic power centers.
Huge.
And beyond the economic and cultural, there's a strong security element to this institutionalization too, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely central. The IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's powerful military and political force. It was established initially to defend the revolution, but it's evolved into this multifaceted entity. It has powerful military branches, yes, but also vast economic interests, political influence, responsibilities ranging from building infrastructure to running media outlets.
A state within a state, almost.
Some observers definitely describe it that way. We also see the MIS, the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, Iran's main intelligence agency.
Okay.
Centralized domestic and international surveillance, including, controversially, extraterritorial operations against perceived dissidents abroad.
Right.
And maybe crucially for the soft war idea, there's the National Information Network. This is a long-term project designed to reduce reliance on the global internet.
The halal internet idea.
Sometimes call that, yes.
Yeah.
The aim is securing ideological and technological sovereignty through state-controlled digital infrastructure. More control over information flow.
So all these institutional mechanisms were clearly designed to fortify independence. as the state defined it.
Yeah.
But ironically, they also seem to reveal the inherent limits and contradictions of that kind of state-led autonomy.
Exactly.
Where does this leave us then?
Well, this brings us right to that surprising, almost ironic twist we touched on, this central paradox,
Okay.
where the pursuit of independence, specifically resistance to foreign ideological influence, inadvertently created new forms of internal control.
That's so.
Well, the Islamic Republic built these internal structures that, in some ways, you could argue, replicate the very hierarchical and exclusionary dynamics it once opposed when fighting the Shah or foreign powers. You know, the enforcement of a singular cultural identity, the suppression of dissent, the monopolization of information. These actions have led many Iranians, especially younger ones, to view the regime itself as a form of internal domination.
Wow, that's a powerful realization. So you're suggesting that in the very act of resisting external influence, the regime inadvertently built internal structures that mirrored the kind of control they initially opposed.
That's certainly an argument many are making, yes.
Yeah.
And it connects to what we were saying about the younger generation.
Right. For many young people and civic actors today, true independence, Esteqlāl, is no longer primarily about resistance to state-led authority or external powers.
No.
It seems to be defined by something much more fundamental, freedom of thought, pluralism, civic autonomy. Is that fair?
That's exactly right. The concept is being actively reinterpreted. It's becoming a demand for institutional accountability, for transparency, for more participatory governance.
Okay.
You see these themes reflected in works coming out of Iran and the diaspora, like analysis focusing on truth and trust in Iran's civic future, or works titled things like 2-3 words. They frame independence not just as resisting external power, but as a positive commitment, a commitment to civic virtue, ethical responsibility, finding shared meaning within society.
So it reveals this deeper tension.
Yes, between external sovereignty being free from foreign control and internal liberation being free within your own society.
Can independence truly reconcile cultural authenticity with civic freedom? That seems to be the core question now.
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
When you look at these institutional shifts, all these bunyads, the IRGC, the information network, what's maybe the most surprising unintended consequence you've observed?
Perhaps the most profound is how the very definition of the threat has shifted for so many. The focus moving from the external other to internal structures of power.
Right. It seems the future of Esteqlāl, then, might depend less on resisting the foreign and much more on reclaiming the domestic.
I think that captures it well. It's about potentially rebuilding trust, rethinking institutions, nurturing a more pluralistic civic identity from within. And again, some of the Iran 1400 Project articles really dig into this, things like the evolution of citizenship in Iran or from fragmentation to citizenship. They explore these ideas in Iran's contemporary context.
And what's the takeaway there?
They seem to affirm that true independence, or maybe the next phase of Esteqlāl, for Iran's future might not lie just in rejecting the foreign, but in finding the courage, the capacity to rebuild from within.
What a journey this idea Esteqlāl has been on. From a definition really rooted in anti-imperialism, resisting outside forces, to one that for many now seems fundamentally linked to civic freedom and internal liberation. It's a surprising and I think a profound shift in focus, isn't it?
Yeah.
From external threats to the internal dynamics of governance and individual expression.
It really is. It forces us to reconsider the very nature of independence itself, beyond just borders on a map.
Indeed. It challenges us all, perhaps, to look beyond simplistic definitions. So we leave you with this thought. What does it truly mean to be independent? Not just for a nation, but maybe even for an individual or a community. And in your own context, wherever you are, how might independence be defined less by what you resist externally, and more by the freedom, the trust, and the pluralism you cultivate from within?
Thank you for listening to the Iran 1400 Project podcast. The Iran 1400 Project invites scholars, experts, and intellectuals to share their assessment of the evolution of institutions and ideas during the past 100 years to inspire a vision of Iran in the 1400s. If you found today's episode thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. For more content and upcoming events, visit Iran1400.org. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and stay hopeful.